I think you recognize that you have to be fairly selfish to be successful in a sport when you're also now thinking about the injuries that you have to bring home to your family.
Yep.
I had to think, like, if I came home with damages, what's it going to do to my children psychologically?
Yeah. The 10 words that will ruin your life are what will other people say and what will other people think. When you lose a fight, it is hard to read the comments on Instagram. If you get beat up, you're going to take an L in front of a million people.
So many times as the pressure mounted, I would be somewhere else. My body was going through the motions, but was I there with the conscious intention of being my best? Absolutely not.
I was bullied really heavily till I was 15 years old. Beat me up all the time, was scared, but I had enough. And I realized that I need to get bigger. I need to get stronger, but I have no clue what I'm doing.
Welcome to the Built for Growth podcast. I had such an amazing conversation with a very special guest today. His name is Bobby Maximus. He is one of the world's foremost fitness authorities, Men's Health named him one of the 100 fittest men of all time. He's a best-selling men's author, and he's trained numerous Tier 1 assets and Special Forces soldiers in the United States military. This former UFC fighter and BJJ Masters World Champion has broken multiple power and endurance world records, and his no-nonsense approach to fitness is second to none. We talked about what it takes to shift your mindset for success. He did some math equations that not only made me laugh, but really drove home the point of no excuses. The hard truth is there isn't one thing that will transform your life, and it doesn't happen overnight. But if you want to know how to get started, how to get 1% better every day, this episode is for you. And remember, whatever it is, you are built for it.
This episode of Built for Growth is brought to you by Lila Quantum.
Bobby, it's awesome to have you here today. I've been looking forward to this. Our mutual friend, Tracy Lee, was like, hey, you should have Bobby. I was like, brilliant. I would love to have you on the podcast. I mean, we both have fighting in common. I think we share like minds in nutrition and maintaining that. Some people call it biohacking. I think that's kind of a weird term, but technically you'd be a biohacker.
Something like that.
How do you feel about that?
I don't want to be grouped with the other biohackers.
Okay, so here, we share some common ground here too.
I don't like anything in life that would lead you to believe that there's a hack or a shortcut or three easy payments of $9.99.
Exactly my qualms with the term biohacking.
But the other thing with biohacking is it's always something that lies in the last 2%. Whenever it's a biohacker talking, it's something that's so inaccessible, or it's some type of microscience that it just doesn't affect people. And I think the reason that does well in social media is because people have a really hard time looking themselves in the mirror and saying, I'm the reason why I failed. They want to believe that there's some little secret that they didn't know about. You know, why are you one of the greatest fighters of all time? It's not because you had some secret technique or some secret little training session that no one ever heard about. You did one simple thing. You showed up for 4 to 5 hours a day for 20 straight years. Mm-hmm. That's your secret. Like, if you want to be good at something, go do this.
You got into MMA by way of?
Okay, it was kind of by accident. I was bullied really heavily till I was 15 years old. Beat me up all the time. My breaking point was these 4 kids beat me up in the back of gym class and left me with a broken collarbone. I was scared. I was lonely. I didn't know what to do, but I had enough. And I realized that I need to get bigger. I need to get stronger, but I have no clue what I'm doing. What team can I join? I'd never been picked from a team. I'd been cut from every team I tried out for.
You were not an athlete.
I was not an athlete at all. And so I went to the wrestling team because the wrestling team didn't have cuts, because you always need extra bodies, extra dummies to throw around. My first year, I was 0-40. My second year, I won 1 match out of 40. And to this day, it's probably my greatest athletic achievement of all time. And from there, I actually started to get better. And then I started to win. And then I started to gain confidence. And I found myself on the Olympic ladder for Greco-Roman wrestling in Canada. I really desperately wanted to make the Olympics. I didn't. And I didn't know what else to do. I met a guy named Sean Tompkins, rest in peace, legendary MMA coach. And Sean said that they were doing this thing called MMA, and he needed somebody to teach his guys wrestling. I'm like, well, I'm the guy. So I went out and I started wrestling. We would fight. We would grapple. And then he's like, hey, why don't you try this kickboxing thing? And I was kind of good at it. So I'm hanging out with Sean one day. He looks at me and he goes, how would you like to go to Edmonton and punch somebody in the face, fuck a couple of ring girls, and get paid $500? And I'm like, say when?
Yeah.
Like, why? This is like, I'm like a 21-year-old guy. This is the greatest, this is like the greatest deal in the world. So I go to Edmonton and I beat somebody up and have a lot of fun. And I go home, and then he's like, how would you like another fight in Calgary? And so I go to Calgary and I won that fight. And then I won another fight. And then I fought for an IKF World Kickboxing Championship amateur. And then I had a chance to go on The Ultimate Fighter Season 2. And I did well enough that they offered me a contract. And then I was in the UFC. Even to this day, I don't identify as a fighter. When I decided to retire, when I decided to quit, if I decide to hang it out, I don't feel like I lose my whole identity, where a lot of my contemporaries in the sport, I feel like when they're not able to fight anymore, they lose their identity. Like, I'm not a fighter. Who am I? What do I do? That was never a thing for me.
That was a thing for me. I had to move through that, and it was really difficult.
It's hard for people.
After I won my title, and then I lost it, and then I lost my next fight, and I retired for 5 years because I didn't know who I was outside of fighting, and I had tied so much into a single outcome. Have you ever seen a documentary called The Weight of Gold?
No.
It's really good. It talks about how athletes give everything, like going to the Olympics, placing silver or even gold or bronze, the small difference between these athletes, but it's like such a big difference in their career trajectory afterwards. They're like 5 years after making juices at a smoothie bar, and they've dedicated their whole life. So imagine how heavy that is to carry that and be like, I don't understand why I've gotten not what I expected out of it. It is some difficult thing, I think, for a lot of athletes, but it wasn't for you. Why do you think it wasn't difficult for you?
Because I don't think my identity was ever attached to that.
Quantum energy, also known as frequency medicine, is scientifically proven to have powerful impacts on cell rejuvenation. And in my book, that makes it an ideal option for treating many health conditions. And studies show it can also improve athletic performance, which, as a professional athlete, is ultimately why I took a serious interest in Lila Quantum Tech. It also blew my mind that in 2022, a Nobel Prize in Physics was given for showing a quantum relationship between two particles that were nowhere near each other. You got to read up on that because it's fascinating. I do love that Lila Quantum Tech has created science-backed products that impact our energy field in a positive way. And to date, they've sold more than 10,000 products that have helped people increase performance, ease pain, lower stress levels, block and neutralize the damaging effects of EMFs. I speak from experience that Lila's products are easy to use and can be incorporated anytime, anywhere.
You have to understand, there was a point in my life, I didn't think I was ever going to win anything. And this is a double-edged sword because it's something that's really helped me mentally and emotionally, but I also think it held me back from achieving my potential. But at the same time, I always kind of felt like there were other things in life for me. This was just something I happened to be really, really good at.
Yeah.
You know?
So you didn't fight that much in the UFC though. I wouldn't have looked at your record, not that much.
No,
So what happened?
I was in the Ultimate Fighter season 2.
Yeah.
I fought in UFC 58, Ultimate Fight Night 5, UFC 62. Then I had a couple of other fights in other organizations. Then I retired for 13 years. And then I tried to come back to the Ultimate Fighter season 30. Looking back on it, I really think I had the potential to win a title. I think I really had the potential to be a lot better. But I'll tell you a story. UFC 58, I'm backstage at the Mandalay Bay. There's 13,000, 15,000, 18,000 people there. I'm going up to fight a guy named Jason Lambert, has a better record than me. He, fought Marco Ruiz. He fought Tim Sylvia. And I remember sitting backstage thinking, this is like 10 times the size of the town I grew up in. This guy's going to smash me. I'm not good enough. This is my one chance. If I don't win this fight, I'm going to lose my contract. So there I am. I'm having these negative voices. And how do you think I did in that fight?
Terrible.
Yeah, I lost. It was my worst fight ever.
Was there something about this event that made it worse than others?
Oh yeah, the stress of it, the bigger the moment. So I want you to think about this and we're going to go backwards. I compete in Masters Jiu-Jitsu right now. There's maybe 1,000 people in the audience, maybe. Do you know how stress-free it is competing in that environment versus in front of 18,000 people live? And there's like 1 million people watching on pay-per-view.
Oh yeah, I do.
Like,
I've done it all.
The environment of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, being on a card with George St. Pierre versus BJ Penn, being on a card with David Lazo versus Rich Franklin, having Dana in your face, having Joe Silva come back and say, this is your chance. If you win this fight, you're going to be on your way, knowing that if you get beat up, you're going to take an L in front of 1 million people. It brought a lot of the pressure out. Before that, I was able to deal with the negative voices because it was less pressure. But it all came crashing down at that moment. So I hired a sports psychologist, a guy named Brian Kane, worked with George St. Pierre, worked with Rich Franklin, worked with a bunch of high-level golfers and baseball players. And we started doing a lot of psychological training, like journaling, this thing I call green light therapy. And then I went into the Ultimate Fight Night 5 against a guy named Christian Rotharmel, had a much better record than me. I had no chance to win that fight. I did not care. I'm like, this is my last thing I'm ever going to do here. I'm just going to go have fun. And I smashed him. I won submission of the night. Uncle Dana gave me a $30,000 check. After that, I did what any sane human being would do. I fired my sports psychologist because I didn't need him anymore. I was cured. I was free of all this bullying, all this nonsense. I'm like, I got this. I'm not paying for this no more. A couple months later, I'm at UFC 62, Mandalay Bay again. Joe Silva comes up. He goes, listen, you're like on the rise. You win this fight, you can have Forrest Griffin or Michael Bisping. I'm like, I got to win. It's now or never. And then all those voices came crashing down and I lost that fight and I got cut from the UFC. But if I could change it, I wouldn't, because it taught me so much about life. But yeah, I got my contract cut in UFC 62 and then bounced around a couple of other organizations. I won a Ring of Fire light heavyweight title. It's called the LFA now. And then I had my first son and I got it in my head that I could not be a good dad and fight at the same time. So I just quit.
Do you still agree with that?
No. But I honestly think that being a father or a mother is one of the most important jobs that a human can have. So I took it really, really seriously. I walked away from the sport.
I think you recognize that you have to be fairly selfish to be successful in a sport when you're also now thinking about the injuries that you have to bring home to your family.
Yep.
You know, when I decided to come back, I was post 2 children and I had my first fight. And I had to think, like, if I came home with damages, what was it going to do to my children psychologically?
Yeah.
Because exactly like you said, the most important job that I have is being a parent. I always, before I had kids, thought what you thought. I don't think it would be a good idea for me to fight and be a mother at the same time. The reason that changed was because I also realized it's also important. My children see me doing the things that also make me happy, because it also translates to the best parent that I can be.
And it's funny because the stories we tell ourselves, because I totally could have fought with my son. I'm listening to your story and I'm like, what an incredible experience for these kids to have a mom that's like trying to do something that's extraordinary. Like, what a good example for them when they grow up, and that will help them a lot. But I had a chance to make it right. 13 years later, I ended up on The Ultimate Fighter season 30. I decided to come out of retirement and just see if I could have done it all those years.
I think it's so important to answer those questions. And there is no right or wrong answer. That's what I've been discovering in life. And that's so freeing. And when you said, I gave up fighting because I wanted to be a dad, not a wrong answer.
Nope.
I think the important part is starting somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. And asking yourself questions. I think not enough people sit down and have a conversation with themselves. Probably sound like a crazy person to just be like, what? Talk to yourself? No, you should talk to yourself. There should be a lot of questions that you don't even have the answer to yet. You should seek that.
What's embarrassing or what's crazy about trying to better yourself? What's embarrassing or what's crazy about talking to yourself, about doing journaling, about meditating? Like, there's no shame in doing every single thing you can to try and progress as a human being. And if we all did that, I promise you every problem in the world would go away.
I think what you said is gold. And I hope that people really hear that and drive that home. Being able to have a genuine take on who you are and finding your peace. Earlier you were talking about goals, and I think that they change as you really find yourself. And I also find that goals can be so limiting.
Yes, 100%.
Right? Like for me, I used to make winning the goal because I always thought that was the most important, not in the beginning of my career. And I enjoyed wrestling far more when I lost every single match. Once I prioritized winning, as I became better in the sport of MMA, I lost the love for it. It sucks the air out of the room, so to speak. And for me, I realized that goal limited me from ever being my best, because winning didn't mean I was my best. Sometimes I could win with far from my best.
Yeah. So I want to bring up something I call the LeBron James problem. LeBron James, there's an argument he's the greatest basketball player of all time. And it's all predicated on how many championships he has. But there was one championship LeBron won that the only reason he won is because Ray Allen hit a miracle shot from the corner. That shot doesn't go in. Now he's down one championship. There's another year he didn't play the greatest, but his teammates carried him a little bit. And he got another championship. So now he's down to 2. Now he's completely 100% out of the conversation. But you know what? He's not a different basketball player. He's the exact same basketball player. And now we're predicating on some outcome, whether he's the greatest ever or the greatest not. And so now I look at your career. Maybe if you just don't land that one punch, you never win that belt. But you wouldn't be a different fighter sitting here. You could have lost that fight, but you're not a different person. Maybe if I would have had my mental stuff sorted out a little bit, maybe I get a shot at a belt and maybe I'm able to pull it off. And now I'm sitting here UFC champion. And so that margin of victory can be razor thin. And so wins and losses, what I tell people is ignore that. focus on the process. And whatever the result is, just make peace with the fact you did as good as you could.
Yeah. I also have those little stickers. My goal in that is about deciding what I want out of that moment, because so many times as the pressure mounted, I would be somewhere else. My last fight before retirement, when I fought Raquel Pennington, I don't even remember the fight. My body was going through the motions, but was I there with the conscious intention of being my best? Absolutely not.
No. So the phrase is be where your feet are. I try to be where my feet are, no matter what I'm doing. And I think that helps us in a lot of ways. It helps us win more and be more successful. It also helps us, I'm going to say, enjoy the rest of our life more. If you can't be where your feet are and enjoy everything, you're a miserable person.
Yeah. Can I ask you a personal question?
Absolutely.
Your testosterone naturally is very high. You're not on TRT. You disclosed that to me.
Never used TRT. And I want to say I don't agree with it. Now, when I say I don't agree with it, I'm going to back up on that a second. I agree with it as a medication. Not as a quick fix, not as a Band-Aid, not as the solution.
Well, and here's the scary side about getting TRT. Once you start doing that, it has a cascade of effects of what your body will or will not produce in the future. So getting off of it.
You're on it for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Like you're signing up for a medication for the rest of your life. And I just don't think that's a smart thing if you could do it naturally. If I can fix ulcerative colitis by myself through diet, that's what I'm going to do. Not sign up to be on this, that, or the other drug for the next 30, 40 years.
Well, you're a terrible person for the system. The system is not set up for us to solve our own problems. The system is set up for you to go to the doctor and be told it's not your fault. There's nothing you can do about it. So I'm going to take your money for this prescription and potentially get kickbacks from pharmaceutical companies. But I mean, pharmaceutical companies didn't become trillion-dollar companies because everybody was doing the things they needed to do in order to provide the things that they need.
And I'll be very clear about this. I think two things can be true at the same time, but I don't think that pharmaceutical companies necessarily have some agenda to keep you sick or hurt you, or they're out to get you. But at the same time, they are there to make money, which may or may not be in your best interests, which means you get hurt as the end result. That's one of the things with a privatized medical care system. Now, I'm from Canada, where medical care is public. If a doctor says you need an ACL reconstruction, you probably need an ACL reconstruction. You go to a privatized doctor down here, do I really need the ACL surgery, or do you just want to make $50,000? That's a problem to me. There's when money is involved, even if the intention isn't bad, things change.
Right.
Maybe this can help, but of course that's going to be your solution because you make money off it. And then when the doctor gets a kickback from the pharmaceutical company, of course he's going to prescribe you versus telling you to go stand in the sun with your feet in the grass. I don't think anything is necessarily nefarious, but I would just prefer to do things the
natural way.
The natural way.
Yeah. So your testosterone, what did you say it was at?
951.
951. That's impressive. So I tried to look up before I came in here that anything over 1,000 is considered like really high testosterone. So 300 to 1,000 is where most men would fall, but not.
But your data's flawed. The average person has a testosterone, and we'll call it 350, 400, 500, 600. It doesn't matter. When you go into your doctor and he says, yeah, your test is 350, you're fine. You're in the normal range. Normal compared to who, and normal compared to what? Normal compared to like the Walmart dwellers? Like, is that what you want to be normal?
Yeah, because the scale will slide if you're basing it on what everyone else is doing. Then of course normal doesn't mean optimal or what it should be.
So I actually don't think my testosterone is that high. I think it's normal for what a male should be if you look after yourself. And so stop comparing yourself to normal. Just do the right things. And that's another example of don't go after the goal. Focus on the process.
Yeah, and that goes back to shifting from outcome-based to effort-based.
Yes.
I have shifted my mindset so drastically over the past 2 years, but my most recent fight would be the best example of this. I ended up winning 2 10-8 rounds, and then in the third round, it was a 10-8 and finished with a submission. It was the best performance of my entire career. I had let go of so much of the things that were prohibiting me from being my best. What matters is enjoying the process, being present, knowing what I want out of this moment, fucking getting after it. It wasn't that I didn't care if I won or lost. I wanted to win, but it wasn't going to be a limiting factor for me. The win was a byproduct of being my best through this fight. And if I had lost, I truly think I could have been just as happy. Yeah. That's the alleviating part when you can take the pressure off of it, because I would say, you know what? I did my best. I enjoyed the moment. I got everything that I wanted out of this. And okay, so I didn't get the result, but I still did the process the right way. And if I continue to do it that right way, then the odds of me getting the result that I want
are way higher.
exponentially higher.
And so that's why, like, my number one piece of advice to people that are listening to this is just do the right thing right now. Whatever you're doing right now, and think about what's one thing you can do to be better. But I promise you, if you do something every day to make yourself better, in a year, you're going to be a lot better of a human being.
It is that simple. But sometimes it's not realistic and people feel like a failure if they're not able to do it every day. So I also say sometimes start with, I want 5 out of 7 days. Just start somewhere because that is acceptable too.
You could also reframe that. Maybe you should only work out 5 out of 7 days and maybe you should only eat right. But you know what else is good? Self-care.
You know what I do every morning before I lift my head off the pillow?
Tell me.
I sit for about 5 minutes, just think about what it is that I want out of the day. That's a non-negotiable for me. I start my day with my first goal, get outside, get morning light. I'm already feeling like a winner of the start of my day, which helps to set a tone for the rest of the day.
And the other thing to remember is it doesn't have to be perfect. And I actually had my moment before this podcast. So after the PGF last night, we went for dinner. It was a lot of fun, but I was out later than I wanted to be. And I woke up at 7 o'clock. It took me a little longer than I wanted to get moving. It's Monday, so I had to make sure my YouTube live was prepped. I had to do all these things. And it's like, man, I got 15 minutes left. What can I do in 15 minutes? So I ran down to the hotel gym and I banged out 50 pull-ups and 100 push-ups. Not a perfect workout. It's not going to necessarily make me bigger or stronger tomorrow, but it was better than nothing. And I promise you now, the podcast is better. I'm going to go have a great training session this afternoon. I'll enjoy myself more just by that 15-minute win.
Well, there's a big mental shift there because you realize that you prioritized yourself and you did something for yourself. So even though it wasn't perfect, you can still hold on to the fact that you did it as opposed to feeling like you did nothing.
Yeah. And that's your secret. Like if you look at me, if you're looking on my Instagram, you're like, wow, this guy's shredded. This guy looks great for 46. This guy, like, that's your secret. It's just in that 15 minutes, I chose to say yes instead of say no. That's what the secret is. It's not this weird biohacking thing. Let's be clear about that.
Yeah, no, because there isn't a hack. And I think it's just continuing to build momentum on that. And once you start to make that mindset shift, you'll see how it all starts to come together and things that you didn't realize would work together or work with, or the type of people that you attract into your life or whatever that is, it will start to come together.
But isn't it easier just to take a pill? Like this is why no one's listening to this, right? Like people are listening to me and they're like, yeah, whatever. Like, isn't there a pill I can take? It's like, no, listen, all you got to do is do these things. You know, I had a woman that I trained lose 80 pounds in 6 months by just walking during her meetings.
It's like she got the desk treadmill?
Yep. That was it. The rule was when she was on a phone call in her office, she had to be walking on that pad, 80 pounds in 6 months. No Ozempic, no drugs, no gastric bypass. No, it's literally like, yeah, I walk when I'm on the phone. But that's not what people want to hear. They want to believe that there's a thing, the easy way out. Because again, it's really hard to look in the mirror and blame yourself. You remember earlier I said it was my fault I didn't make the Olympics for wrestling?
Yeah.
It's funny. I worked harder than anybody, but I lost the Olympic wrestle-off 7-6 and 7-5 in the best 2 out of 3. 4 years prior to that, my wrestling coach, Ray Takahashi, was like, you should be watching videotape. How much videotape do you think I watched in those 4 years? Take a guess.
Not very much.
0. So for years after that loss, I blamed my coach. I blamed my work ethic. I blamed all the things except for the thing that it was. And it was a refusal to watch videotape. Now, did I go on a lot of dates? Yes. Was I really, and I mean exceptionally good at a video game called Resident Evil 2 and Super Street Fighter? Yes. Did I play a lot of Magic the Gathering, which is like a total nerd game? Yes. I came to a point in my life where I had to look myself in the mirror and say, you know what, you lost because you valued those things more than going to the Olympics. And that hurt. That was like a moment for me where I was like, wow, I guess this is really my fault. That's a real thing that happens. People are unwilling to do that because when that moment comes crashing down, it sucks and it hurts your feelings. That's not fun for anybody. It's much easier to just go take your Ozempic. And then you're like, this is not my fault. I'm a victim.
Yeah. Have you helped people get off of Ozempic or TRT?
I've helped some people get off TRT. I haven't helped anyone get over Ozempic. And I think it's because Ozempic is generally like a newer thing. I helped a guy go from 380 to 240 about 6 years ago, but Ozempic wasn't a thing. We just did it the natural way. TRT, I've helped a couple of people get off, but the hard thing with TRT is once you're on it, your body stops making it yourself. And it is a really, really long, hard road. to get off of that. No one talks about the downside of that. What happens if you can't afford it anymore? And then your body's not making it anymore. You're dealing with months of depression, lack of motivation. It's really difficult.
But it can be done.
It can be done.
How quickly do you think the body adapts to not making it itself?
So it depends who you believe. In about 10% of the cases, I think is about the accurate scientific figure. Your body never learns to make your own on your again. So if you're one of the lucky 1 out of 10, you're pretty much screwed. In 9 out of 10 cases, 3 to 6 months, it should come back. There are some drugs, and I don't understand the whole gamut of them, speaking very honestly, that can like kickstart that. But to my understanding, they're really expensive and not accessible to everybody.
Yeah. So I guess I think we're coming to the end of this. I guess in closing, is there anything that you would say to people who are like, look, I could never be that. I could never work out for 2 hours or 4 hours out a day. That's just not me. I could never realistically do that. Is there a way that you get people to start their mindset shift?
Shift from asking yourself, instead of asking yourself, why me? Ask like, why not me? Like just literally shift your mindset. Why can't I do that? Chances are you probably can. But even without a mind shift switch, just go do something. Again, it's so simple. Go do something right now to better yourself. Like, can we just start with the small things and focus on the process? If you can do that, you will be fine. And no matter what story you tell yourself, it's probably a lie. Can I grab my calculator for a second?
Please.
Just want to do a little exercise here.
Let's do it.
So you're saying you don't have time. There's 168 hours in a week. Everyone's got the same 168 hours. Now, I don't mean that to be diminutive. If you have 3 kids, you have a different 168 hours than you do if you're like you have no kids,
single
right?
parents have a different, yeah.
But times time, 168 hours. I'm going to give you 8 hours sleep a night. So 8 times 7 is 56. It's 8 full hours. So it's minus 56. Okay, we have 112 hours left. You work 60 hours a week. And you're like, I work 80. No, you don't. 60 hours a week is Monday to Friday from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. And that's work. So you work 60 hours a week. You probably don't work that much, but I'm going to say 60 hours. We have 52 hours left. You have travel time to and from work and daycare and whatever. I'm going to give you 2 hours a day for that. So there's 14 hours gone. We have 38 hours left. You got a grocery shop. I'm going to give you 3 hours
You're
for
hedging
that.
a lot of bets here too. You're definitely going with the worst of the worst
Oh
case.
yeah, I'm giving you a lot of time.
12 hours a day. Yeah.
Now you want to watch Love is Blind. I'm going to give you an hour of that for a day. I've plugged that a couple of times.
That is my one. But you know what? It's funny that you bring that up. You must be a fan of the show then.
I just bring it up because
it's garbage TV, but it's
garbage TV and it's on all the time.
It's literally the only show I think in the last decade that I got into, and
people are obsessed with it.
I only that one.
And I
so
actually don't watch it. I just reference it because it's like so.
But
many
it's funny
people
that you bring that up because I don't watch TV like at all. But it's
it's because I can see the evil in your soul.
Yeah,
that's why, right? But
okay, so continue with your.
So you watch that an hour a day. There's 7 hours gone. I'm going to give you 4 hours for Monday Night Football. Okay, we're down to 24 hours left. Like, in what fucking world do you not have time to train? Like, you got 24 hours left. And I don't care if that's 15 minutes a day. You have time to do something. Think of all the things that I just rattled off. Oh, here's a good one for the parents out there. I'm going to give you 2 hours a day with your kids to spend quality time. We're going to get rid of 14 more hours. You still have 10 hours to work out. You're like a professional athlete. Parents are going to push back. 2 hours a day isn't a lot of time with my kids. When's the last time that you spent 2 hours with your kid with no phone, no distractions, fully immersed in them? And the answer is never. 2 hours a day of really good quality time is a ton of time. People aren't doing that. Like, some people are.
Yeah.
And then I get the question, my kids don't want to go to the gym. They want to watch TV. So let me tell you about my little fella. He's 4 years old and he is the light of my life. I absolutely love this kid, but he has an obsessive level love with Lord of the Rings. We have seen The Hobbit 87 times. Do you have any idea how many fucking push-ups you can do during an episode or during a movie? The answer is a lot. Your workout doesn't even have to be perfect. You could just be watching your show, and every time there's a commercial break, you could do 10 push-ups and 10 squats. Every time that you could turn it into like a drinking game, but a fitness game.
Yeah, make it fun. I don't know why people have to look at fitness as a punishment. I think that's the apprehension. A lot of it is like, for some reason, there's this negative connotation. If I work out, it's a punishment. You got to shift the mindset to like, I feel good about it. I'm so excited to start this. I'm so excited to start my 10 squats today.
Here's more math for you. You're working that 12-hour day. Every hour, if you got up and you did 10 squats, just till you accumulated 100 in the day, by the end of the year, you'd have 36,500 squats. You would not be the person that skipped leg day. Booty goals would have been realized. Like you could try it right now. We could get up and just bang out 10 squats and then sit back down and do the podcast. And you know what? You'll probably be more energetic. You'll probably answer more emails. You probably feel better about yourself. Long-winded, but the point is, whatever story you're telling yourself, you're probably lying to yourself. You're probably gaslighting yourself into believing it's not possible when you have all the available tools.
Yeah. If you say it's not possible, you just need to realize you're saying, I don't want to.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So just like go do the
Make
thing.
it possible.
And the only difference, honestly, between me and you fighting in the UFC and the person that didn't is we probably just showed up and tried. There's a lot of people out there that it's possible if you're willing to do one simple thing. And that's just try for 5 hours a day for 30 straight years. You'll make it happen.
I love it. Bobby, this is a great conversation. Where can people find you and anything that you want to talk about? Or you got what's your website? What's your books?
Oh, yeah.
Your books, anything?
Yeah. So I wrote a best-selling book for men's health called Maximus Body. So it's a great read. And a lot of it is actually sports psychology because that's where it starts. I'm not telling you, I didn't give you a secret workout today or a diet plan. I just told you to, go do some work. So the book really helps with that. There's two basic ways to get a hold of me. One, just type Bobby Maximus into whatever, Google, YouTube, Instagram. I'm on the TikTok. The kids call me
the TikTok.
I'm actually my titles, and I would like this in my bio for your podcast. I am a Giga Chad and a Sigma. Those are my.
You're gonna have to write those down for me, but I'll put them in there.
And my 15-year-old assures me that means I am one badass dude. That's like the Gen Z kids. They like me. But you could type Bobby Maximus into anywhere. The second way is at midnight, go into the bathroom, turn your lights off, and say Bobby Maximus in the mirror 5 times. But I can't promise you're going to like the end result of that. But no, don't try that. It ends up bad for you. But no, just Bobby Maximus anything. And I wanted to tell you something before we end the podcast.
What's that? I
am extremely grateful and humbled and honored to have the opportunity to be here. It's funny when you talk about the process and being a kid from a town of 1,800 people up north where nobody knew my name, where I was getting beat up and stuff. I started going through the tendency a few years ago of I did so many podcasts, so many interviews. They start to become a chore, like you're like, oh God, I got to go do this thing. I got to go do this thing. And I started doing some gratitude journaling, and I put myself back in the position of, do you remember the first time somebody ever asked you to be on a podcast? Do you remember the first time you signed a UFC contract? Do you remember the first time somebody asked to interview you? Like how good that felt. Feeling. Like how, and so I do that before every podcast. And it is, I just want to say it is really fucking cool to get to sit down with somebody like you, who's one of the best fighters of all time. I don't have a better word for it. It's just really fucking cool. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that's a great point to leave and drive home on. I think what you focus on and the way that you look at a situation can shape so much of your everyday life and how you feel not only about yourself, but about your surroundings. It's what you're looking for. You're looking for the positivity. You're seeking that out, and as opposed to focusing on the mundane or the work. So thank you for being here today. I'm always grateful for my guests. I think it's such a blessing to be able to sit down for an hour and just have a conversation. Yeah. Nowhere else than where your feet are. You're talking about be where your feet are, and it is have that attitude of gratitude. So thanks, Bobby.
Yeah, I appreciate you.
Thank you so much to Leela Quantum Tech for making this episode possible. Please check them out at leelaq.com. That's LEELAQ.com.